Hey everyone, so we're going to do chapter 8 today. These are the emergency strategies that ICBC is just going over. We've kind of talked about a few of them just as we went along. Again, emergency strategies are to be used in emergency situations, and emergency situations do not come up that often. However, they will come up throughout your career of driving, so they are good to know. Some of them I probably haven't even come across yet in the 10 years that I've been driving. However, it's always good to be prepared. And so far, I've been pretty impressed with the ICBC book, as I've noticed a lot of the suggestions that I've given, they also have given. I think this chapter will be good. It should be on the test because it is about emergencies, and they, of course, want to test that knowledge. So I would pay attention. So we'll just go over in chapter 7. We had useful strategies to help us handle personal situations that can influence our driving. This chapter describes 2 major strategies for handling driving emergencies and many practical tips for helping you control situations to prevent emergencies from developing. So, preparing for emergencies. No one really expects to be involved in an emergency, but you can be sure at some time you'll face one while driving. The best way to handle emergencies is to be prepared, and one of the ways you can prepare is by rehearsing what you would do. As you drive, look out ahead and scan the scene for potential hazards, such as a child running out in front of you, a cyclist swerving into your lane, a car stopping in front of you suddenly, etc. Ask yourself, what would I do? Brake, swerve, pull over, etc. You always want to be alert and drive using the see, think, do strategy. If you're alert and make good decisions based on your observations, you will usually be able to take driving action before an emergency develops. Remember to prepare your vehicle for emergencies, carry the right emergency equipment to help you deal with situations described in this chapter. So, emergency driving strategies. 2 strategies to control dangerous situations in an emergency are emergency braking and skid control. These strategies are complex, and you should only practice them in a safe location under the supervision of an expert driver. Again, so this is one of the things that I'm talking about. I myself don't typically use my emergency brake or whatever skid control is, so we'll learn together. However, like it says, I would only do this in a safe location with an expert driver, because like I said, after 10 years, I still haven't necessarily used my emergency brake. Other than parking on a hill, obviously. So we'll just go through this together. So ICBC has a bit of a warning here. So even skilled drivers are not able to handle every emergency. These strategies in the chapter cannot guarantee your safety, and the best preparation for an emergency is to avoid it. So this is just ICBC's disclaimer saying this book is not going to save you no matter what. If you were expecting that, then you believe in magic. However, it's always good to be aware of the different options available to you to use in emergency situations. Like I said, a lot of this you're just going to develop on your own, but for the test, this is important to know. So you in the driver's seat, you're driving along your street, almost home. Out of the corner of your right eye, you see a ball roll out onto the street with a blurry image behind it. Maybe the neighbor's child. There's hardly any time to stop. What should you do? So even when you scan carefully, unexpected hazards can occur. When that happens, you may need to use emergency braking. The key to emergency braking is to stop the vehicle as quickly as possible without locking the brakes. If you lock the brakes and the wheels stop turning, you will lose control of the steering and the car may skid. So this anti-locking braking system, ABS, is a part of your car. So most vehicles have ABS, which allows you to brake and steer at the same time. You can't do this with ordinary brakes. In an emergency situation, if you have ABS, you should apply continuous, firm, hard pressure to the brake pedal until the vehicle stops. The computerized sensors automatically release the brakes from the wheels to prevent locking. Contrary to what some people believe, ABS does not allow you to drive faster, and they don't always allow you to stop sooner. On some surfaces like gravel, the braking distance may be longer, but ABS can help prevent wheels from locking on wet and slippery surfaces. If you do not have a vehicle with ABS, be sure to check your owner's manual for more complete information on emergency braking techniques. So this book was published, I believe, in 2012 or maybe 2014, I'm not quite sure, but like it said, most cars do have ABS. That stands more so even now in 2021. So we're just going to read the driving tip here. Learn how to use ABS correctly by practicing in a safe location. Accelerate to 30 kilometers an hour and brake hard. Steer around an imaginary object. Do not pump the brakes because this turns the system off. Do not be alarmed by the brake noise or shudder. This is normal. Check your owner's manual so that you know the correct braking technique. So strategies, emergency braking techniques. To stop suddenly in an emergency with ABS, press down hard on the brake pedal and hold it down until you come to a complete stop. Do not pump the brakes. So pumping the brakes is just pushing down on the brake, letting up, pushing down on the brake, letting up, pushing down. So that's kind of my automatic go-to. As a new driver, I'm not quite sure what yours would be. So it's just saying with ABS, you don't want to do that. You just want to push on the brake pedal until it stops. Lean into it. Look into the direction that you want to go. So you're going to want to look into the direction that you want to go because automatically that's kind of the way you're going to steer is the way that you are looking. So it's just like when you're walking, you're looking in the direction that you want to go. Same with a car. So this is without ABS. Press down hard on the brake pedal, but not hard enough to lock the wheels. Quickly release the brake and press hard again to regain control if you start to skid. Look in the direction you want to go. In most cases, you do not want to lock your brakes when stopping quickly. However, there may be occasions when you choose to lock the brakes because stopping is more important than steering. Okay, so this is the with ABS, just push all the way down until it stops. Without ABS, you are going to want to use that pumping motion where you're pushing and letting go, pushing and letting go. So yeah, like it said, just check your owner's manual to see which car you have and then practice that braking technique. Again, newer vehicles are probably going to have this system. So skid control, you in the driver's seat. It's a cold morning, you're in a hurry to make it to work on time. You suddenly feel the vehicle isn't responding when you turn the steering wheel. You press the brake and the back of the car swings to the right. You've hit ice. What should you do? One of the scariest things you can do is hitting ice, just because you do have little to no control. So let's see what they say here. So we're just going to do a think about the road conditions before you start to drive. Will the weather conditions make the road slippery? You should be able to avoid skidding by making safe choices in the first place. The most likely cause of skidding is poor driving skills. Okay, so for example, if I know that it's going to be icy out the next morning, it's typically winter, perhaps it was raining last night and then this morning it's not raining, but it's still very cold. For me, I would be like, okay, there's probably going to be ice on the road. So main roads should be okay because they're usually salted. However, I would still go slow. But if I was on a back road, I'm looking for kind of like a shine on the ice, the shine of the ice on the road, or I'm just driving very, very slowly. And like I said, you can try that braking technique just to see if you've got any slip or if you're good to go. So skids can happen anytime the tires lose grip on the road. This can be caused by slippery surfaces such as the seen above, or by changing speed or direction too suddenly. Environmental elements like rain and ice contribute to skidding, but poor driving skills are the main cause of skidding. The best way to avoid skids is to use your see, think, do skills. In slippery conditions, slow down. So just slowing down allows your car to have more traction on the road. So that's just why they're suggesting that. Again, good tires will also help with that. And also having good tire pump amounts. Sorry, I don't know why I can't speak today. But basically just having your tires pumped to an even and lower amount during the winter will help. And again, they'll automatically do that when you get an oil change from, say, Midas or something like that. So warning, skids happen when drivers slam on the brakes, and steer at the same time, go around a corner too fast, or accelerate suddenly. So steps to handle a skid. The illustration shows what happens to your car when it skids and how you can gain control. The numbers in the illustration correspond to the following steps. So, number 1, you're driving straight, but you fail to notice a patch of black ice ahead. As you drive over the black ice, the rear of your vehicle skids to the right. Ease off the accelerator and look and steer smoothly in the direction that you want to go. In this case, steer to the right. Do not brake, it will make the situation worse. Now the rear of your car skids to the left. This is likely caused by you overcorrecting in step 2. Lay off the accelerator and steer smoothly in the direction that you want to go. In this case, steer to the left. You may need to repeat steps 2 and 3 until you regain control. So this is just saying that if you swerve after you try the second step, you want to do it again, and then basically just until you correct yourself and you're going straight. So once you can regain control, continue driving with caution. So now that you're aware that there's black ice on the road, you definitely want to be a lot more careful. This can be quite a scary situation. You just want to remain calm and continue to try to steer in the correct direction, and you do not want to brake because actually using your gas pedal will give you more control in this situation. Obviously, don't slam on the gas, you're just pressing gently because you're already at a driving speed, but that speed will help your tires grip the road rather than braking, which releases your grip on the road, if that makes sense. Environmental hazards. So the best option in extreme weather conditions is to stay home or take the bus. But here in BC, we do get fog, heavy rain, and snow, which can create difficult driving conditions. Rain, snow, and ice can cause road surfaces to be unpredictable. Slippery road surfaces are dangerous for drivers and their passengers and may lead to crashes involving several vehicles. My mom has a rule where if it snows, she does not go out on the road. As a new driver, you can go out on the road, just be very, very, very careful. And take main roads would be my suggestion, because usually those back roads are the ones that aren't getting plowed. And like it said, you'll see lots and lots of crashes, and you do not want to be one of those people. So loss of visibility. You in the driver's seat, you're driving along a rural road when suddenly you're in a low area that's covered in fog. You strain to see ahead, but it's hard to see anything. What should you do? So your ability to effectively see, think, do is reduced in bad weather conditions, just because you can't really see ahead, which is a big part of this strategy. So weather conditions like fog, rain, or snow can be blinding. You can't see clearly ahead or behind. Your information about the road scene is dangerously reduced. You can't make good driving decisions in these conditions. So a driving tip is in certain foggy conditions, you can use fog lamps instead of headlamps if that helps with visibility. In these situations, you can turn your headlamps off and only use your fog lights. However, both fog lamps and headlamps should never be used at the same time. If there's some fog but visibility is not affected, or if the conditions are not clear. So fog lamps. I kind of assumed that was high beams, but the way that they're describing it doesn't really sound like high beams. So yeah, if you're in a foggy area, just look into this a little bit more because it could be helpful. So strategies, driving in low visibility conditions. Difficult weather conditions can be hazardous for drivers because visibility is often reduced. In these conditions, you want to slow down, maintain extra space margins, search and scan more carefully, use low beam headlights in rain, snow, and fog. Do not pass in extreme weather conditions because you cannot see far enough ahead. Pull over and stop if necessary until the visibility improves. Choose a place that's safe from other traffic and does not block roadways. Use your defroster to keep your windows clear. If necessary, keep a window partially open for ventilation. Clear the vehicle of snow and ice before starting off and make sure you can see clearly. Keep your wipers and washers in good working order. So just to touch on this, I usually replace my wipers or washers, washer fluid, I guess, before winter. So summer is gonna do some damage possibly just because it does get quite hot. So I usually wait until the rainy weather starts and then I switch out my wipers just because you're gonna need those for fall, winter, and spring. So if you're gonna replace it at any time, your best bet is gonna be right after summer because then they're gonna be ready to go. Clearing the vehicle of snow and ice. So this is actually illegal not to do in BC. You will see people driving around with snow on their cars, and I just recently found out that is illegal, and you are meant to clear your vehicle completely before leaving. I myself purchased like a window shield covering, which helps with the snow and the ice just in the mornings when you're on your way to work. If you have a garage or underground parking, that's always going to be best. So defrosters, definitely want to use those as you're driving, just because that will keep your vision clear. It won't get foggy in your car. Some cars don't have good ventilation, so if you have an older car, you can leave the window partially open. If you are going to pull over, like you do feel super unsafe, you don't feel that you can continue to drive, totally fine. Just pull over in a place where you're not going to be hit by another vehicle that does not see you because of the same problem. And we're not wanting to pass in extreme weather conditions, just because that is super dangerous, even in clear conditions when you can see everything. Again, during the winter, definitely don't want to do this. So this is about the fog lamps. I believe it's a low beam headlight. So yeah, if you're in a foggy area, just check that out. I typically haven't had an issue in the past. Maintain extra space margins. That's just because you can't see who or what's around. So definitely stay in your lanes and drive slowly. All right, glare and shadows. Changing light conditions can reduce your ability to see. Glare can blind you in the day or at night when meeting vehicles with bright headlights. Dark shadows can hide hazards. So you'll notice a lot of the new vehicles have really, really bright lights, especially those trucks that come up behind you. You can tilt your rearview mirror down to help with that. But yeah, it is unfortunately just something you're going to have to deal with. So some strategies for overcoming glares and shadows. We're going to slow down before entering tunnels to let your eyes adjust to the lower light levels. We're going to remove sunglasses and turn on your headlamps when driving through these tunnels. You're going to use sunglasses and your sun visor during the daytime. You're going to keep your windows clean. Readjust your rearview mirror to the night driving position. So this is just what I was saying when someone comes up behind you. And keep a good following distance at night to reduce the glare that your headlights create. So just being mindful of that same problem for other drivers and not going too close to someone. So loss of traction. You in the driver's seat. It snowed during the night. You're just starting out to go pick up some groceries. You've driven in the snow before, so you don't think it should be a problem. As you move slowly down the driveway, you apply the brake lightly to test your braking distance. Your car slides slightly. This is more dangerous than you thought at first. There is ice as well as snow. What should you do? In this case, I would just stop, go back inside, wait a couple hours for the ice to melt, and then you can go. Because ice is really dangerous. Snow you can kind of live with, but the ice will definitely affect your traction. So rain, snow, and ice can affect your traction. Loose gravel, wet leaves, mud, or sand can also make roads slippery and dangerous. Slow down and use caution when driving on any low traction surface, and avoid driving altogether in extremely bad weather conditions. So a driving tip: we want to make sure our vehicle tires are in good condition, properly inflated, and suitable for driving in the conditions. So that's the word I was trying to figure out earlier, properly inflated. Definitely helps. It can also help with your gas mileage, which I think I mentioned before as well. So rain can cause two dangerous driving conditions: loss of traction and hydroplaning. Rain makes the road surface slippery, especially during the beginning of a rainfall. The rain mixes with the oil on the road to create a slippery, oily film. This film washes away with continued rain, but if the rain is light or if it has not rained in a long time, the road will remain slippery longer. I was actually thinking of saying this, but then I thought it might just be too much information. But like it says, if it hasn't rained in a long time, or if the rain is light, it will mix with the oil on the road. You'll kind of see it, and you can kind of smell it too. It kind of smells like tar. That means the road is going to be quite slippery just because it hasn't rained in a while, and it just makes this weird solution on the road. Hydroplaning, also super dangerous. I'm sure we're going to go into this more. I find on the highway, I hydroplane a lot when it's heavy raining. So you want to avoid those outside lanes. And if you see a puddle, do not drive into the puddle quickly, because sometimes the puddle is deeper than you think and you can hydroplane. So strategies for driving on wet roads. Make sure that you have good control when the roads are wet. Slow down and leave more following distance. Allow at least twice the normal braking distance. So we're going to be leaving 4 to 6 car length or second distance. and we're going to brake gently so that the wheels don't lock. Still, I'm not sure how much you guys know, but there is something called cruise control on cars. So we're never going to use cruise control on wet or slippery conditions, because you only want to use cruise control when it's like a bright sunny day, you're on the highway, nothing's going wrong. Definitely not in a rainy situation. So hydroplaning happens when the tires lose contact with the road surface and float on a film of water. The driver instantly loses control of steering and braking. It can happen in rain or standing water. The higher you speed, the greater your chances are of hydroplaning. You can tell your vehicle is hydroplaning because the steering will suddenly become very light. So this is true. If you are driving and this happens, just keep both hands on the wheel and let go of your acceleration until you feel your tires grab again, and then you can go. After it's happened a few times, not as scary as the first time, that's for sure. Like I said, hydroplaning on the highway, I just recently did a 3-month trek back and forth to Vancouver, and it was raining quite hard the whole time. Now I'm quite comfortable hydroplaning, but it's not something you really want to be comfortable with, and also avoid if possible. It's also not very good for your car if you're hydroplaning a lot. I recently had to replace one of my tire rods and also get my car realigned. So vehicles with low tire pressure or worn tread are more likely to hydroplane. You'll be able to tell if your car needs new tires if you go to accelerate at the light and you hear kind of a spin out and it goes like, and then your car grabs and you go. That just means you should check out your tire tread and make sure that there's still enough tread to keep you safe during the winter. Same thing with tires. I would replace them before fall if you do need to replace them, because again, that's the time that you're going to need it. And the summer also can melt tires a little bit just because it does get so hot. So strategies for preventing and handling hydroplaning. To prevent hydroplane, we want to check our tires for proper tread and inflation. We want to scan ahead for large puddles. We want to reduce our speed, especially during heavy rain. So if hydroplaning happens, just what I said, decelerate. So just take your foot off that gas, drive straight, do not brake. Braking is going to reduce your traction. You are never going to want to brake in one of these road conditions. So deep water. Going through deep water can stall your vehicle and can even damage your engine or transmission. Consider turning back and going another way if you're faced with water across the roadway. If you can't avoid the section of roadway, drive through very slowly. After leaving the water, gently apply the brakes for a short distance to dry them. Moving water that is deeper than half a meter can carry a car away. So yeah, if there's deep water, don't drive through it. You could ruin your car or get stuck, so it's not usually worth it. Ice and snow. Ice and snow can cause you to lose traction very carefully. Lack of traction causes the wheels to spin when accelerating, to lock when braking. You can easily lose control of steering. In winter, temperatures can change quickly, causing unpredictable road traction. Temperatures near freezing are more dangerous than colder temperatures, although the road may look the same because ice can form unexpectedly and may not be visible. That's why we call it black ice, because you don't typically see it until it's too late because it's the same color as the road. So beware of hidden dangers. Black ice is caused by moisture freezing on the road surface. Normally you can't see it, but if the asphalt looks shiny black instead of gray-white, be suspicious. Shaded areas. These may still be icy even after the sun has melted the ice on the other parts of the road. Bridges and overpasses tend to form ice on their surfaces before other road surfaces do. Intersections may ice up quickly because of car exhaust and snow packing. Warning, it can take you 10 times the normal braking distance to stop on ice. So some strategies for handling the ice and snow. When faced with these conditions, you want to plan ahead. So check out the weather forecast before starting out. Staying home may be the wisest choice. Using tires that are suitable for road conditions. Carry chains and know how to mount them. Snow tires and or chains are a legal requirement in many BC roads during the winter. So living in the Lower Mainland, we only have to use chains or snow tires during October to May. However, if you live in northern BC, you're going to need these snow tires and chains regardless. It is good to know how to use the chains before you're stuck, because I did try one time to mount chains with a girl that I saw stuck at the mailbox, and neither of us knew how to do it. And so we were unsuccessful, obviously, because she had the chains, but neither of us knew how to mount them. Carry sand or a piece of carpet if you become stuck on ice or snow. So this is a good idea, actually, because that will give you more traction if you do get stuck. I also keep a shovel and a blanket and some food in my car for the same reason. So just in case you're stuck somewhere and no one's able to help you for some reason, then you are ready just in case the worst would happen. So make sure you can see. Scrape snow or frost from the windows and mirrors, get rid of any ice or snow on the wipers, and clean the lights before driving. You want to scan further ahead when driving to give yourself a larger safety margin. The nice thing about driving in snow or bad conditions is less people are driving. Again, if you don't have to drive, don't drive. But just having less people on the road does make it a bit safer, which is why we're advising, if you don't feel safe, not to go out. Think. Plan maneuvers further ahead so that you have more time to react. We want to slow down, accelerate gently. Sudden starts can send the vehicle into a skid or cause wheels to spin. Carefully test your braking and steering at very low speed. Use this test to determine whether to continue or whether to slow down more. Do not wait until you spin out on a hill to put on tire chains. If there's a lot of snow on the road, just put on your chains right away before you even head out. Again, in the Lower Mainland, that's not usually an issue, but Northern BC, that might be a good idea. I think typically people opt for the studded tires, which is also helpful. It just has like little spikes mounted in your tires so that you have more traction. So it's extremely difficult to mount chains when you're on a hill. Instead, use a designated chain up area. So, for example, on the Sea to Sky, there are some of these little areas that you can chain up before heading up the mountain. So ease off the brakes and then reapply them to maintain steering control if the wheels lock. So that's the pumping the brakes. We want to slow down before entering skids and corners. Braking in curves may cause you to skid. We want to use a low gear to go down hills that are icy. So even in automatic cars, if you feel that your car is not in a low enough gear, you can manually change it either to the 2 or the 1 that you see on your steering gauge there. I have never used 1. I typically use 2 if I'm going to do something like this. But again, these are very, you shouldn't be driving if you need to do this at that point. Most workplaces are going to understand if you call in sick and just say, the roads are too bad, I'm not able to make it there safely. So we're not going to use the cruise control in ice or snowy conditions. We're going to allow extra space margins, including more for following distance. So we're leaving at least 6 seconds between us and that other car. We're not going to pass unless we really, really have to. If a car is broken down, but otherwise it's just not safe to pass. And we're going to travel in the section of the road with the least amount of snow or ice if you have more than 1 lane you can drive in. So if it's a 2-lane highway, you'll notice that most people will drive in the same area and there'll be those tire tracks. That's going to be your safest bet because that road is going to have more traction than obviously the snowy portion of the road. We're going to use gentle and smooth steering motions. Again, if you crank the wheel in the snow, you're going to slide for sure. So you just want to use very, very gentle steering. If you're stranded or snowbound, stay with your vehicle unless you're absolutely sure you can reach help. If you decide to run your car to keep the interior warm, only do this for about 5 minutes every hour. You must be very cautious because your car can fill up with carbon monoxide gas. Carbon monoxide poisoning can cause dizziness or drowsiness or even lead to death. Make sure that you also check that the exhaust pipe and the exhaust system are not blocked or damaged because this could cause increased leakage of carbon monoxide into the car. Keep one window slightly open at all times for fresh air and make sure that at least one person stays awake at all times. So carbon monoxide poisoning is a real problem if you're stuck in the snow, just because say you backed into a snowdrift and your exhaust pipe is stuck in the snowdrift, that carbon monoxide is going to come back into your car and it's not typically something you can feel happening. You just feel tired and then you can, or dizzy, and you can pass away. So again, you're going to want to stay with your car because like it said, you can run your car to keep yourself warm. Also, a car is easier to spot than a person. It also gives you some protection. So this is why I like to keep a blanket. Like even in here, they've got a blanket. And that's just because if you were stuck, then you can stay in your car. You can stay warm until someone finds you and gives you help. So warning, if you feel dizzy or drowsy while you're in your vehicle and it's running, you may be experiencing carbon monoxide poisoning. Turn off the engine and get plenty of fresh air. That's just because carbon monoxide is going to stay in your body longer, and so you're really going to need that fresh air to help wake you up and clear your system a little bit. So do you have the right equipment for weather conditions? So we'll just go over what they have. So they have a rope, so that's probably for towing, for if you did get stuck. They have the tire chains. Again, you're going to want to practice those before you actually hit real road conditions. The sand for extra traction if you are stuck in the snow. This could be a blanket or it could be the carpet that they were talking about earlier. I would use a blanket because typically it could do both things if you really needed it. So this is a safety triangle. This is to make you more visible if you do get stranded and you want people to find you or don't want people to hit your car. A flashlight. This is a fancy flashlight, but a flashlight is always handy as well. Your cell phone to call for help. A snow brush to help keep your windows clear. A shovel, again, very handy in the winter. It can be just handy for you in non-emergency situations, like you're in a parking lot and they snowplow behind you and now you're stuck. And then a first aid kit, which is important year-round. So turbulence. Watch out for crosswinds, headwinds, and tailwinds. These can make it difficult for you to control your steering. Even a passing tractor trailer can cause enough turbulence to move a vehicle. You probably don't really know about this yet just because it's not typically something you don't feel if you're not the driver. I usually feel the turbulence when I'm holding onto the steering wheel because you can kind of feel the way your car moves. And when a truck drives past, you'll feel it kind of shake. This is turbulence. So I hope that makes it a little bit easier to understand. So strategies, dealing with turbulence. If you experience turbulence when driving, slow down, grip the steering wheel firmly with both hands. Watch out for vehicles that could be more easily pushed into your path, such as motorcycles, small cars, campers, and vehicles towing trailers. Allow space on either side if you're passing a large truck or trailer. So yeah, if you are on the highway and you're passing this truck or trailer, you're going to want to go wide so that you try to miss most of that turbulence because it's going to be the closer to their vehicle. Night hazards. You're in the driver's seat. You've been driving all day to reach the city where your friends live. Now it's nighttime and you're feeling a bit drowsy. You're on a quiet rural road. There's very little traffic, but you see a car approaching from a distance. You switch from high beams to low beams, and the other driver is not dimming the headlights. They are shining straight into your eyes, so it's hard for you to see. What should you do? This is one of my pet peeves, is when you're driving on a dark road, you have your high beams on, someone else has their high beams on, you turn yours off and they don't. Typically, I wait until I'm fairly close to them to turn mine off, just because then they usually get the hint and they will turn theirs off. However, not everybody does. It is the polite thing to do. So let's see what they say. Driving at night is a challenge for all drivers. It means your vision is limited and you can't see very well. You can't judge distances very well either. You need to be more alert and practice the see, think, do effectively. Using headlights. Make sure you use the right headlights for the driving conditions. Low beam headlights will light up your path to 30 meters straight ahead of you. High beams give you about 100 meters of light. Be sure to use your headlights properly. You must use the headlights from 30 minutes after sunset until 30 minutes before sunrise. It is illegal to drive at night with parking lights or daytime lights instead of using headlights. So in your car, your lights will automatically come on when you turn it on. Those are called daytime lights or parking lights, depending on how old your car is. However, you're also going to want to turn that light switch so that your actual lights are on when you're driving at night. And that's just because it makes you a lot less visible to other drivers as well. So if you don't have your lights on or they're very dim, they may miss you until they're right upon you. So you don't want that to happen, just for your own safety as well. So you must dim your high beams when you are meeting within 150 meters of another vehicle, either when meeting or following a vehicle. Do you have trouble judging distance? Because most people do. Be courteous and dim your lights early. So this is just what I'm saying. You want to do it when you get into a certain distance of the vehicle, and I don't remember what I was going to say. Oh, following a vehicle. Never use your high beams if you're behind someone. Never, ever, ever. Just because it's quite bright, and usually they have their high beams on, so you're still able to see fairly well. So you must also use headlights if visibility is reduced to less than 150 meters. For example, fog or heavy rain. So this is your daytime lights. Obviously you can see quite well. Here's your low beam lights. So if you were a bit further away, you probably wouldn't have even seen this bear. But your high beams, it's allowing you more of like an above visual as well. So I do like to use my high beams if I'm out in the dark at night. Overdriving the headlights. Be careful not to overdrive your headlights at night or in the fog, rain, or snow. Overdrive happens if you're going too fast and you're not able to stop within the distance covered by your headlights. It's especially dangerous in a curve. So it's just saying that you don't want to go faster than what you can see, because you need to be able to see everything in order to stop in time. So strategies for night driving. To reduce the risks of driving at night, you want to keep your eyes moving. Scan carefully for pedestrians, cyclists, and animals on the road. Just be aware, this is my own thing that I'm just adding in here, just be aware that animals, they move around at dawn and dusk. So those are also dangerous times to be driving, just because you can't see very well, and now you also have animals. I typically look for their eyes, because you'll kind of see like white or yellow eyes before you usually see the animal. If the animal is on the road in front of you, like this bear is here, and they're staring at you, I mean, don't do this with a bear. But if it was a deer, typically we do have a lot of deer here in my area, and it's just standing in your road. You've probably heard of that expression, deer in headlights. And that's because some animals, when they look at your headlights, they get kind of like entranced, and they'll just stand there and stare at you. What you can do to break this trance is flash your headlights. So your high beams, if you don't have them on, or even if you do, there's typically a little bar that you can pull towards yourself, and that's going to turn them on and off. If you flash your headlights in their eyes, they will move out of the road. Don't do this to a bear, because I don't know how bears react to that, but deer, they will move. So we're keeping our eyes moving, scanning for pedestrians, cyclists, and animals on the road. We're going to avoid glare from lights, glance to the right edge of the road to avoid glare from oncoming traffic. Adjust your rearview mirror for night driving to avoid glare from the headlights behind you. Again, typically people aren't using their high beams, but some trucks or newer cars do have very bright headlights. We want to adjust our outside rearview mirrors so that the body of the vehicle is outside of your view. This will also help reduce blind spots as well as glare. And we want to keep our interior lights off and keep the instrumental panel lights low. So you know how dads always say you can't have the lights on inside the car because it's illegal. I'm not sure if it's illegal, but it definitely does help with driver visibility. It's easier to see outside when you're not focused on the inside of the car. We want to keep our windows and lights clean. We want to stay alert at night, sing, talk out loud, or stop for a cup of coffee to make sure you stay awake. Slow down and increase your following distance. So vehicle breakdowns. An unexpected vehicle breakdown can cause a dangerous situation for you and your passengers. The best prevention is having a well-maintained vehicle and doing periodic and pre-trip checks. Another way, if you really don't have anyone that you can call or anyone that can help you if this was to happen, you can also sign up for BCAA. I have an older car, so I did sign up for that as well, just because I figured that I'm more likely to break down with an older car than I am a newer car. And they are a great service just in the fact that they will come and tow your car or come help you charge your battery or whatever you need if you, again, don't have anyone in your life to really help support that. So tire blowout, you in the driver's seat. You're driving along the highway and your front tire suddenly blows out. What should you do? So when your front tire blows out, your vehicle can be pulled in the direction of the deflated tire, especially at high speeds. A rear blowout can cause a vehicle to start skidding. So strategies for handling a tire blowout: to help keep safe, we want to keep a firm grip on the steering wheel. We don't want to brake suddenly and risk loss of steering control. We want to ease off the accelerator and decelerate slowly. You can start to brake gently once the car has slowed down. We want to steer it in the direction that you want to go. Again, you can go back to that skid control that we went over earlier. And you want to signal or put hazard lights on and pull off the road as soon as it's safe. Brake failure. Total brake failure is rare. However, if your brake system fails, you will need to use your see, think, do skills quickly to respond safely. So some strategies for handling a brake failure. If your brakes do fail, don't panic. Keep thinking about the hazards in front of you and how to avoid them. Look for an escape route or something to slow you down. For example, the side of the road or an empty field. Pump the brakes hard and fast. You may be able to get enough braking action to stop the car. We want to gear down to the lowest gear so the engine can help you slow down. We want to apply the parking brake gently and gradually, using the brake release as you do so you're prepared to release the brakes quickly if the car goes into a skid. We want to use hazard lights or horns to warn other drivers. So like this says, your brakes failing isn't typically something that will happen. You're just going to do what you would do in any other situation. So keep calm, try to figure out what you can do to avoid hurting anyone else and yourself if possible. You want to pump your brakes in this situation, just because if your brakes aren't working at all anyways, there's no point in obviously holding it down. So we're going to try the other option, which is pumping, which is putting your foot on and off, on and off. Going to the lowest gear, so just like that 2 or 1 that we were talking about earlier. Your parking brake, you just want to use that very carefully because it could put you into a skid. And again, hazard lights or your horn if there are people around you, just so they know to avoid you. So a driving tip. If you've ever had power steering or power assisted steering, you can steer even after the engine has stopped. You just need to use more effort. If the engine stops, do not turn off the ignition because the steering will lock. So I have had this happen where my power steering stopped working. This was a long time ago, so I don't think this would happen to you. So without power steering is actually very hard. You have to put a lot of strength into it. So like it said, you don't want to turn off your car. You just want to grab the wheel and do the hand over hand as hard and as quickly as you can, depending on your situation. Just be aware that when you don't have the power steering, it is going to be hard. That's not just your car. That's just the way it is. And that is why we invented power steering. So engine problems. You never know when the engine may die. You need to move out of traffic and into a safe place quickly as possible if this does happen. So if your engine ever fails, we want to signal and steer to the edge of the road. We want to get to the nearest exit or service area or pull off the road as far as possible. If you're on a busy highway or freeway, avoid stopping on a bridge or in a tunnel if at all possible. We're going to turn off our hazard lights and we're going to set out the flares or that warning triangle if it's dark or visibility is limited. Stay with your vehicle, put an SOS notice on your windshield. Consider carrying a cell phone if you often travel on freeways or isolated roadways. So this kind of shows how old this book is at this point, because I think that almost everyone carries a cell phone nowadays. But back in the day, it was more for emergencies. You're never going to get into a stranger's vehicle. You can ask them to continue ahead and phone for you. So yeah, if you're stranded in a dark area, you're going to want to lock those doors. Talk to people through the window. Just because they look friendly doesn't mean that they are friendly. You still want to practice your stranger danger, obviously. Don't try to do roadside repairs on a crowded or fast-moving highway. Really, don't do this. Don't try to change a tire on the highway. I've seen people do it before, and it's scary for myself just trying to leave that space margin. And it also can be scary for them because if they get too caught up in what they're doing, they could forget about the dangerous road that they're right beside and maybe make a misstep. So warning, if your vehicle catches fire, stop and let everyone out immediately. Do not open the hood. That could cause the fire to spread. Move well away from the vehicle. So you'll see a lot of these are just going to be common sense, right? So engine failure, we want to get off the road, we want to protect ourselves, and we want to ask for help. Pretty basic. Headlight failure. It is dangerous and illegal to drive at night without headlights. You must get off the road quickly as possible if your lights fail. So if your headlights ever fail, we're going to turn the light switch on and off quickly. We're going to turn on the hazard lights if the headlights stay off, and we're going to slow down, pull off the road, and get help. So your car lights do have several different settings, like we were talking about, like your daylights, your high beams, your headlamps. So what I would also do is maybe try the other options and see if I get any light at all. If you really don't have any light, you could turn off your car and turn it on again. That's a good strategy for everything in life. Turn it off, turn it on, see if it works. But yeah, if it's really not working, you're going to want to stay off the road just because obviously dangerous and illegal. Your hood flying up. Your hoods can fly up if they're not securely latched. If you notice that your hood is not properly latched, pull over and fully close your hood. So you'll notice that when you go to open your hood, there's like a little handle that you usually have to click under the hood to make it go up all the way. So if you were driving and your hood wasn't fully attached, you would probably notice your hood shaking. So like bumping up and down, up and down, up and down. That's going to be a sign that obviously it's not secure, and then you could pull over and push it down. But if this does to happen, don't panic if you find yourself blinded by the hood. Try to look through the crack below the hood or open your window and look in the direction that you're traveling. You're obviously going to stop driving, so take your foot off the accelerator, turn on your hazard lights, pump your brakes to warn other drivers behind you that you're slowing down. So every time you push on your brakes, you're going to get brake lights. So it's just saying to pump your brakes so that the drivers ahead of you see kind of like a flashing so they know something's wrong. And steer over to the side of the road. The most important part of the strategy is do not panic. As soon as you panic and start swerving, that's when you're going to cause more problems. So yeah, just trying to look, slow down, turn on your hazard lights, get off the road. Warning, never reach down with your hand to release your stuck gas pedal because you could easily lose control of your vehicle. So gas pedal sticking. A gas pedal can stick because of ice or snow buildup, if the floor mat gets pushed up and jammed under the pedal, or because of a malfunction. You may be able to release the pedal by using your toe to lift it if you're driving at very low speeds when the pedal sticks. So this has never happened to me. This does sound quite scary. I have had my pedal get jammed a little bit because of my floor mat. So I would definitely make sure that your floor mats are attached well or are quite smooth, because that is quite frustrating and scary. But yeah, you're going to want to be very careful if this does happen to you. So some strategies are: apply the brake, look for an escape path that will get you off the road, continue to brake. So you're continuing to brake because your gas is stuck. So your gas is still going, but when you're using your brake, you're kind of mellowing it out. You might hear some nasty noises from your engine, but again, safety is going to be your biggest concern. You want to shift to neutral. So you'll see an N with your 1 and your 2. There's also an N. Like it says, this may damage your engine just because that's not ideally what you're supposed to do. However, it will keep you safe. You're going to follow your escape path. Once you've stopped, turn off the engine. Do not try the engine again. Call for help. So help could be your dad or VCAA or just a tow truck in general. Animals on the road. You in the driver's seat. You're driving along a rural highway at dusk. You're keeping careful to watch for animals. You've seen a deer and elk in this area before. Suddenly, a large elk steps out from the bush right in front of your path. What should you do? So in BC, animals on the road are actually a major hazard. Crashing into a large animal can cause damage and injury, not just to the animal, but also to you and your passengers. That's just because a deer is not small. Even like a raccoon can still cause damage, say to your tire, your bumper, or obviously your heart, because the poor animal. So yeah, something you definitely want to keep an eye out for at dawn and dusk, because those are going to be your major opportunities to see animals. So strategies for watching for animals. To prevent a collision, we're going to scan the road and the side of the roads for animals. We're going to watch for animal crossing signs when driving through farming or wooded areas, and we're going to slow down. We're going to be extra cautious at dawn and dusk. This is when animals move around to feed, and it's also harder for you to see them at these times. We're also going to look for sudden, unusual spots of lights on the roadway at night. These could be a reflection of your headlights in the animal's eyes. Remember that wild animals often move in herds. If you see one animal, there may be more. So yeah, basically everything I just said earlier. Look for little dots of lights, which are their eyes. We're going to look for those animal signs. They're typically that triangle with like a picture of a deer or something. Scan the sides of the roadways, just to make sure you don't see any. And remember that they're going to be more around when it's harder to see anyways. Driving tip. We're going to take extra care when driving near horses and riders. Slow down, give them lots of space, and do not honk the horn. So that's just a bit from chapter 7. So strategies for when an animal is in your path. You're going to check your rearview mirror to see if there's a vehicle behind you or if you can stop suddenly. You're going to assess the risks and decide on action. Could you stop safely? Could you steer around the animal? Would it be better to hit the animal or risk a crash? So this is something that goes together. So if you check your rearview mirror and you see that there is a vehicle quite close to you, and for example, in front of you is a squirrel or a raccoon, and you just don't have anywhere that you can swerve, unfortunately, your best call in that situation is just going to be to hit that animal. I know it sounds cruel and terrible, but at the end of the day, if you smash your brakes on and the person behind you obviously doesn't see that animal, they could hit you, and now you're damaging yourself and that person behind you. So as terrible as it sounds, you're going to want to do a risk assessment on the situation. If you have time, you can pump your brakes like we were talking about before, and that would give the person behind you an idea that you're planning on stopping. But obviously no one's expecting you to stop in the middle of the road, so this is where you're going to have to make that call if it would be better to hit the animal or crash. So you're going to slow down, but resist the urge to slam on your brakes. When you see an animal, this can send your vehicle out of control. We're going to leave a large, wide margin when we drive around an animal. A frightened animal may run in any direction. If the animal is large and you can't stop in time, brake firmly and steer to strike the animal on an angle. Let up on the brake pedal just before hitting the animal. This will cause the load of your vehicle to rise and reduce the chance that the animal will come through the windshield. So this is just like if we were going to go through a corner, we're going to brake before the corner, we're going to let go as we get there. If an animal is large, like a deer, they can do quite a lot of damage to your car. And like it said, if you don't let up on the brake before you hit the animal, it could come through your window, and now there's damage to you and the animal. So you just have to be careful. I've never hit an animal just because I am so careful, but I do know several people that have hit them, and it's quite sad and also quite damaging for the vehicle or yourself. Collision avoidance. You in the driver's seat. You're driving up a hill. Suddenly a car is coming right towards you in your lane. What should you do? So no one wants to be involved in a collision, but you may find yourself in a situation where one is unavoidable. The best way to avoid collisions are to use your see, think, do skills. Keep yourself alert, scan systematically, maintain good space margins, and travel at an appropriate speed. These steps will help you avoid most collisions. Even if you're faced with an unavoidable collision, you can sometimes reduce the impact, but you will need to think quickly to do this. So strategies for avoiding crashes or reducing impact. These techniques may help avoid a crash or reduce the impact of a crash. We want to slow down as much as possible. We're going to try to avoid locking the brakes. So again, this just depends on what braking system you have, if you have the ABS or the pump brake action. We're also going to steer for something that will cushion our car, like a bush or a high snowbank. We're going to avoid hard objects like parked cars or trees. We're also going to avoid a head-on collision at all costs by steering to the side. Steer to the right, not the left, as the oncoming driver may steer to the right. We're also going to use our horn. This may cause the other driver to regain alertness. So if they're in your lane, typically it's because something has gone wrong. So if you honk, it could make them come back to whatever is happening in their own situation. However, I have been in this situation where someone was in my oncoming lane, and it was just because he was trying to pass another car, and it was quite scary. So obviously, a lot of the time on the road, you will have that side where you can kind of pull on if need be. But if there are cars on the side or if there's trees on the side, that's not going to be your best option, because those are all hard objects that are going to hurt your car, yourself, and also bring you to a complete stop. Whereas if they're talking about the bushes or snowbanks or even like an open field, those are things that are going to help you slow down safely. Again, you're not going to want to do a head-on collision. At least if they hit your side, or if you both hit sides, that's going to be much safer than driver on driver. So crashing into a solid object at 30 kilometers is like a sitting vehicle when it falls from a one-story building. At 60 kilometers an hour, a solid object is like being a vehicle when it is, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. I'm going to read that one more time. Crashing into a solid object at 30 kilometers an hour is like sitting in a vehicle when it falls from a one-story building. At 60 kilometers an hour, hitting a solid object is like being in a vehicle when it falls from the roof of a 4-story building. So basically this is saying if you hit a hard object, you're going to come to a complete stop really fast. And that's going to give you quite a bit of whiplash and just not a pleasant experience. So like we just said, we're going to avoid those hard objects like trees and cars, because those are something that can actually bring your car to a full stop. So as the graphic above, doubling the speed quadruples the force of impact. This is the reason why speed is such an important factor in crashes and why slowing down saves lives. So yeah, you're not going to want to hit something at full speed or hit something like something that's not moving, because that's going to be quite dangerous. So we're going to think about, if you arrived at the scene of a crash, you may decide to stop and help. Think about what you could do, what you would like others to do if you were involved in a crash. So a driving tip: when driving by the scene, do not obstruct the traffic by slowing down more than necessary. Stay focused on your driving to avoid causing another crash. So you'll see this a lot. Whenever there's a crash, a fire, or anything going on, drivers will always slow down to look. I mean, that's just natural. You want to see what's going on. Maybe you're a bit nosy. Maybe you know the area or you think you know the person. However, by you taking your eyes off the road and looking at this other crash, it is actually quite likely that you will get into a crash by yourself, just because maybe the driver ahead of you has also slowed down and now you didn't notice, and now you rear end them, and now you're also part of the problem. So just being aware to not cause more problems than solve. So you as the driver, you round a corner, you hear the sound of screeching brakes followed by a crash. You slow down and you see the car in front of you has rear-ended a truck. What should you do? So the nice thing to do in this situation is to be a witness, because a lot of times you'll notice that stories can get misconstrued. And if you do see something and you think it may be helpful, or hear something or whichever, it is nice to be a witness for that driver or for the police even. So we arrive on the scene of a crash. The other drivers have been involved in the crash and they may need assistance. So here are some things you may be able to do to help. Make sure your vehicle is parked away from the crash where it won't obstruct any traffic or emergency vehicles. So say you just saw this happen, just drive a little bit further, pull over, and you can walk back. Take measures to alert other drivers that there has been a crash, for example, setting up warning triangles, and this will help avoid further crashes and injuries. So if you do have like those red cones or red triangles in your car, you could set some of those up. You want to call for emergency services if necessary. So call 911. You want to stay with the injured people until help arrives. If you know first aid, you could always help. However, if you're not comfortable or you don't have first aid, you can just even comfort them with your presence, so at least they're not alone. And you also don't want to smoke or let anyone smoke or light matches, because there could be a fuel leak. If you are involved in a crash, you have some legal responsibilities. So if you are involved in the crash or others crash because of something that you do, you have to stay at the scene and give reasonable assistance. You're going to want to call 911 if you can or if it's needed. And you must exchange the following information with the other driver: anyone that's been injured or anyone whose property has been injured. So this is typically just the information that's on your driver's license, such as your name, your address, the name and address of the registered owner of the vehicle, if that's not you, the license plate number, and your insurance information. You must also provide this information to the police or witness if requested. So say, for example, you're in the accident and a witness is there helping out the other drivers. You must give this information. It's just part of being involved in a crash. So a driving tip, you want to pick up our What to Do After a Crash card from your local auto plan broker. This card makes it easier to record important information from the scene of the crash. So this is actually a really good idea for a new driver. So they do have like a little form that's like a picture of like an intersection. So you're able to quickly write down and like draw a picture of what happened. And that's just going to be useful because in emergency situations like this, you kind of panic and you kind of forget what you need to do. Or if it's your first time in an accident, you don't even know what to do. So just having that card kind of helps ground you to the situation and the information that you need to do. And I would also recommend taking photos from all angles or possibly a video of the accident because like I said, people panic, things get misconstrued, and you do need this information for your insurance. So it's best to be over-prepared than under-prepared. So some suggestions of other things you can do. You can move the vehicles off the road if it's safe to do so. Again, I would take those videos and pictures before you move the vehicles, just because that is going to give a better picture of what happened. We're also going to avoid discussing who's at fault for a crash. So we've just been in a crash. We don't want to be in a fight right now. We just want to get the information we need and deal with this later. We're going to write down the name and addresses of all witnesses. This is also helpful if you were not at fault. If you are at fault, it may kind of feel like an attack, but at the same time, this is just important for everyone's safety. We want everyone to, move on with life and have a good life. So you don't want to get rid of witnesses or anything like that. You want to exchange driver's license numbers with any of the drivers involved. Draw a sketch or take photos of the scene, noting conditions such as the time, location, and the weather. And you want to notify your insurance company right away. So here in BC, that's typically ICBC. You just call them and they will walk you through all of the information that they need. And all that information that they need is the ones that they're suggesting that you gather here. So your name, address, the other vehicle's name, address, license plate numbers, and just like the different things that could matter. Chapter 9. Woo!